Cool. Hello. Welcome to OpenStack Startup Series broadcast by CloudDawn. We have Henrik Rosendahl from Akanda. Akanda is the new hard startup offering open source network virtualization. And today we will hear more about what they are and what cool stuff they are doing in this space. Morning, Henrik.
Good morning, Srim. Hey, pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Yes. Please tell me a little bit more about yourself, kind of introduce yourself and what you guys do at Akanda. And then
Sure.
we will start working with a little bit more in depth with what you guys do. What are your offerings?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the CEO of Akanda. Akanda is a fairly new startup in the OpenStack world. We announced the company and the foundation of the company at the summit in Paris about 6 months ago.
Yes.
Akanda has a longer history in the OpenStack world than the past 6 months. We are a spin-off from DreamHost in Los Angeles, and a lot of the OpenStackers will know about Ceph, of course. That was also spun off from DreamHost and was sold to Red Hat exactly a year ago. So we have the same heritage, so to speak. And much like DreamHost developed Ceph for internal purposes, about 3 years ago, they were starting to architect their public cloud called Dream Compute, and they basically needed a sort of a software-defined network, and so they embarked on this journey where they chose Cumulus Networks switches or the Cumulus Networks Linux on white label switches. And back then they implemented VMware and Nicira as their layer 2 to get like really solid tenant isolation. But what they needed on top of that was sort of like layer 3, layer 7 network services that were also sort of IPv6 compatible. And they looked around and couldn't really find anything that they liked. So they embarked on the journey of developing what is today Akanda.
Okay.
So that's really the background.
How long was it? I assume this is before the Nicira acquisition you're talking about?
Yeah. This was, DreamHost was one of Nicira's very first customers. And so I believe they were one of the first 5 customers to,
okay.
So yeah, it goes that way.
Nice. So primarily the lack of IPv6 support was the driving factor. Right. That
was the first and most important factor. But then there wasn't any routing capabilities and any sort of load balancers, and so they're like, what the heck? How hard can it be? Let's go ahead and do it, right? And DreamHost is big enough to have a development team on staff, and so they embarked on this journey. And obviously, it always takes longer than you think. But here we are, 2.5 years later. Okay. And we're spinning it off of DreamHost and providing basically sort of enterprise grade support, installation, professional services around that offering. That's essentially what we will announce in Vancouver in a couple of months or a couple of weeks. Sorry,
couple of weeks. Yeah. So even though it's kind of working as part of Akanda, the spin-off happened only about 6 months ago, or a little bit more than 6 months ago, around the Paris summit. And Akanda as a company, as a startup, is about 6 or 7 months old. Is that right?
That is correct. That is correct. Right. So we were legally founded, 6 months ago, and we operate like a startup, right? We received seed funding. We just announced that about a month ago. Okay. DreamHost and a bunch of fairly high profile seed investors joined around here. Yeah. Nice,
very good. That's good. So the seed funding came primarily from DreamHost and then high profile investors, and you would call yourself at the seed level, right? Maybe you have some more runway to go into the next series later, probably later.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, we're seed stage for sure, right?
Yeah. How big is the company? I know that you have a high profile CTO and VP. You got great hires there, Mark and Sean.
That's right. That's right.
So and how big is the team? And I'm sure like you would have poached some from DreamHost, but tell me
exactly,
a little bit more
right. So right now we're 6 people strong in the legal entity of Akanda, but then you have to add the people that are still on the DreamHost side, which is probably another half a dozen.
Okay.
Right, and then gradually we're taking over both the development and the support effort, okay. And really what's left in DreamHost when we complete the transition would be the sort of the operational side of the house, right? So DreamHost will transition from being the sort of the creator of this product to becoming a customer like everybody else.
I'm sorry, I lost you. The DreamHost will transition, and then there was a glitch.
From being the creator of Akanda to becoming a customer, right?
A customer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Yeah. Investor and customer. Sweet. Okay, that's good. I also that's great. That's very interesting. And in terms of revenue, like I know that DreamHost is a big customer. Do you have more customers? Do you have more paying customers? Or is it too soon to talk about revenue?
Yeah, it's too soon, right? We're literally just announcing the product in a couple of weeks, and from that point on, we'll be able to go to market and support proof of concept customers. We've got a fair bit of interest from a lot of the sort of the OpenStack clouds in the making, right? There's a lot of companies out there, in particular enterprises, that are looking at OpenStack, they're looking at Ceph, they're looking at Cumulus networks, and what to do for routing, load balancing, and so forth. And then we sort of get sucked into that.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. That's perfect. Yeah. But just curious in terms of the type of customers. You obviously started with DreamHost, so sure. The hosting provider is the biggest use case for you. What kind of other customers you are targeting, or are you seeing interest from right now?
It's a good question. We are seeing a lot of interest from enterprises looking to re-architect their sort of their a lot like a public cloud would be architected. The old stack, and sure, I hate to say it because I used to work for VMware. I sold a couple of companies to VMware in the past, but unfortunately, I have to sort of bite the bullet and say that in many people's minds belong to the legacy stack. It's EMC storage, it's VMware hypervisor, it's Cisco networking gear, and it's just too expensive. Yeah. Right? It might be fine for a finite number of enterprise apps that were developed 20 years ago, and that's all they can do. But as people move forward and CIOs see an increasing competition for compute and storage from Amazon and the other cloud providers, they need to find a way to drive down cost, but maintain both security and control, right? And so that's really what's driving the conversation for enterprises to look at OpenStack. They're looking at a various number of components, and that's really the conversation that we want to be in.
That's right. When you say about that makes sense, but when you say about enterprises, right? So I mean it's a big bucket. It sure. varies. I mean, you have a variety of customers, variety of workloads. Is there anything specific that you want to target upon, or is there anything specific that are showing interest? Totally.
I mean, it's always the usual suspects, right? If you will, as a startup, the first people that will reach out are typically finance, it's healthcare, it's defense, it's telcos. Right, those are always the guys that are reaching out first. They have teams that are looking at new technologies. They're not afraid of getting their hands dirty. And so those are the people we talk to right now. Right, there is in a startup, sort of world, there are early customers can be too small and too big. Right, what really is hard is you have to find that sort of middle ground of a customer big enough to be having internal resources to support, what needs to be done, but not be so big that their requirements are one-off.
Right.
That's kind of that's the treacherous sort of road that you have to travel as a startup.
Right.
Is finding the sort of.
But you kind of have the advantage that other SDN startups or other small startups don't have. You have the operational support still from the Dream Compute team, right? So you can you can bite a larger bite now. You can chew a larger bite now, which is kind of I see as an advantage for you then.
Right.
Other six-member startups.
I don't have to be afraid of going into a customer that demands sort of scale, right? I have scale. I know how to operate, tens of thousands of virtual machines every day, which is what DreamHost does.
Okay.
But a couple of things that that we have been doing here the last 6 months is prior to Akanda being formed as a company, everything was CLI, everything was script based, because operators on a sort of large scale, they don't really need a UI, right? There's so many events going on that a UI, they already have monitoring tools and reporting tools. So what they need is a sort of a fully automated system. But as a standalone company, what you really want is to be able to show and demonstrate what you have. And so we're in the process of putting a UI on the management and orchestration tool called the Rug. So it comes to life, right? I mean, there is not much that is more unsexy than seeing a network demo in a CLI window. It's just not that exciting.
So you're beginning to talk to the CIOs and CXOs rather than operators. So you need to put a UI there, and
you need something that will bring it to life, right? So you can visualize what is actually happening. Right.
Correct. Hey, I know a little bit about what you are and talking about L3 and levels above L3, right? So just by looking at it, then would telcos be of primary interest? I mean, let's just say like comparing between financial services and telcos, like just comparing two buckets of customers, right? Would telcos be of more direct users than financial services, because financial services do not need, they don't really care other than the cost factor. For them, it's agnostic, right? Whether it's L2 or L3, their applications or workloads do not depend on whether it's virtualized or is L2, L3 or L2 based, right? But telcos might care more. It might help them more directly. So from that perspective, has there been more interest from telcos, or have you been talking to?
Yeah, I would define it differently, because all of the telcos have reached out, right? And we don't have a sort of a telco heritage, if you will.
Yeah.
Our heritage is sort of a large scale multi-tenant environment, right? So I don't care if you're a telco or your financial services or what you are, but if you have hundreds of tenants with a sort of a fluctuating amount of virtual machines, then sure, that's our sweet spot, right?
Okay.
If it's more of a static environment, sure, it can work, but I don't think will be the best fit.
So what is the USP then? Like when you compare against other, let's say SDN startups, I mean, you are avoiding the need for an SDN controller, but still like you are largely in the SDN space, right? So how do you differentiate between, say, Mellanox or Nuage or those kind of startups?
Right. So first and foremost, we are 100% focused on OpenStack, and we are 100% open source. Right. Okay. So this is not closed, open core and something else will come later. Right. Okay. DreamHost has been a big player in both the open source and the OpenStack world, and we're basically taking that sort of operations manual and continuing with that. Right. So we were born open source. We will remain open source. Okay. That is a huge differentiator in this space where, for some people, OpenStack seems to be sort of a market they go after. We're born in OpenStack, out of OpenStack, and obviously you can see the players that are in there. That sort of validates that. The second thing is we need to be entirely L2 agnostic, right? while we will have preferences and we will announce, who would be our preferences in terms of an L2 underlay, in Vancouver. We need to be L2 agnostic, because the last thing a financial services customer wants to hear is that they have to get rid of their Cisco infrastructure of 20 years in order to run my new doohickey, right? I mean, it's a pipe dream, and it's a pipe dream that is typically centered around, startups that are not fully understanding that you have to be compatible with the existing environment, right? This notion of, hey, just, rip and replace, and I can do all these wonderful things for you. That's right. But people just don't want it, right? I mean, think about it. Think 10 years ago when VMware came out and said, hey, put this hypervisor on it, and all of a sudden, all this magic happens. People were really reluctant to do it, right? 5 years ago when storage became more software than hardware, people were scared. And this is the sort of, in my world, the last pillar of enterprise IT that is going from being, these various colors of green boxes to whatever color, and you put your own software on it. And it's a transition. And people want to sort of dip their toe in it, but not fully commit from day one. And any startup that want to be successful in this space has to realize that.
Okay, that makes sense. That's cool. But still, okay, what are the other similar startups that you have that deal with L3 and above? Whom do you think is your competition?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so here's the thing. What we found by being out engaging in the market the last 6 months is that there is no shortage of projects and companies doing virtual routers, virtual load balancers, virtual this and virtual that. And while Akanda we have our own virtual router, we have our own virtual, load balancer. But what we're taking a very different approach. We have, which is really interesting and sort of a novelty in this space, is that we actually have a network management orchestration tool that ties this all together. It's called the RUG, and from the Big Lebowski. And rather than being sort of combative with all the other guys out there,
kind of scope them. Yeah.
We are going to be cooperating with them, and we're going to managing, instances. And you will see in Vancouver that we are announcing, some pretty high-profile partnerships to that effect, where a lot of these projects have been, added, and they're developing these new cool features and virtual routers and load balancers, but nobody really seems to get around to developing a management suite that can handle this at scale. I don't know why it is, but it doesn't really exist. It's certainly not open source. Okay. And so that's our playbook, is saying, look, we've got it, and we can prove it. We have our own virtual router, but hey, if you want to, use your own, that's fine. Let's manage it for you. Cool.
Very good. Now, you talked about how you're different, and then how you are unique in terms of your pure OpenStack based. Have you? And then you're having early customers now. Have you thought about your pricing model yet? What is going to be your source of revenue?
Yeah, I'm not 100% ready to talk about that, but I can say that it's going to be a very traditional open source pricing model, right? Where you pay for SLA basically, and you pay for professional services.
Okay.
The companies that we talk to, particular enterprises, they're like, look, we don't mind paying for support. We want support. In fact, we want 7x20 support, 7/24 support. And so, it's basically going to be an SLA based charge. How many VMs do you have under management from Akanda, and what's your average utilization looking like over a month, and then we're going to charge you a fee per VM based on the response time, right? That's sort of very, very classic.
Okay, that's good. In terms of your compatibility with the OpenStack distributions, right? Do you work with a sort of distribution, or have you tested, or has anybody tested yourself with, say, like Red Hat or HP or any kind of those kind of proprietary
Sure.
distribution.
Yeah.
You can
That's the next phase, right? Totally. Right.
Yeah,
That's the next phase.
Right. You can see where I'm going, right? I mean, if that's going to be compatible, then they can probably offer you as an add-on to it, right? So
yeah, exactly, right. So that's we're announcing the product in Vancouver, and then we will go through a bunch of certifications.
Okay.
That, we're probably ready to announce in Tokyo. I'm envisioning.
Okay. Okay. I mean, maybe I'm just 2 weeks ahead. Probably, do you think that we should have talked 2 weeks after so that you can tell more?
Who knows, right? we can always pick up the conversation again.
Sure. No, it's okay. That's good. Very
right?
good.
Yeah.
Good. Awesome. So let's get into a little bit more about your. You are purely OpenStack or OpenStack based, right? So in terms of your contribution to OpenStack code base, how you guys are doing, and obviously I'll expect you to be doing more on Neutron, but tell me a little bit more about what Akanda does towards OpenStack. Anything, not just code, documentation, or evangelism, anything that, what is your contribution?
Right. I mean, so as you can tell from our two, our co-founder, Mark McLean and Sean Roberts that just came over from VMware, right? We want to be an active member of the community and contribute everything upstream, really, right? So we're already doing that. The UI is obviously based on Horizon, and we're gonna be contributing various code streams to Horizon.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, we it's available on GitHub. You can forget it. We're going to be very public. We have Monday morning IAC chats that everybody can join. We will act and operate like an OpenStack project, and really what I'm mostly interested in, other than getting early customers, is obviously getting feedback and contributors, right? That is equally, if not more important, in the early days of an OpenStack and open source project.
Okay, so are you participating in the operators meetups? Are you communicating with operators directly?
So that's basically the second half of this year, right? It's going to be an outreach to that community.
Okay. Yep. You definitely want to reach out to them to see what they think about and what is the feedback.
Exactly.
And good, very good. And the one thing that I want to ask all the startups is what are your challenges, top 3 challenges? It could be OpenStack specific, it could be business specific, anything, whatever you are feeling.
Yeah, of course. I've done this a couple of times, right? And so you sort of start seeing some similarities and some differences, really.
Right.
Obviously in an open source and OpenStack world, cutting through all the noise of all the other projects out there and finding and carving out your space where people understand what you do and why you differ from X, Y, and Z is a challenge, right? We've got some very good people. We've got a good heritage. We've got a lot of good things going for us. But there's a lot. That it's a big tent, right? And there's a lot of players with conflicting interests.
Correct.
And so trying to sort of carve out your space there is a challenge. But that's a challenge for any startup in any sort of environment. To some extent, it's easier in OpenStack because you have a very active community, right? And it's big, but it's not that big. So without spending millions and millions of marketing dollars, you can talk to this community and get their attention. So it's a challenge, but it's certainly also an opportunity.
Okay.
Right. The other challenge, being here in the Bay Area is hiring people, solid people. There is, and I say this, there's a lot of overfunded startups,
right,
that are basically paying people pretty much whatever they ask, and they're like, yeah, whatever, we'll just sign the contract, get on with it, right?
Move to Seattle.
Yeah, move to Seattle. I know, right? Or Portland, right? So, I think the line dropped here, Shroom.
Yeah, there was
there you are.
Sorry.
Okay, I see.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So I said you said Seattle, I said Portland. But it's a challenge, right? It's crazy challenge right now. No doubt about it. Right.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned about hiding, right? You mentioned about this cutting through the noise. How about see you are in a relative taking feedback. It's kind of a different loop, right? You can't go far ahead without the operators being ready or the customers being ready. You don't want to lag behind too. So what are your thoughts around that? It's kind of both innovating ahead, but also making sure that you're bringing up or taking up the ecosystem along with you.
Yeah, I think it's true for any startup, right? If you have a dedicated team with a singular vision, you can get a lot done, right? And you sort of end up pulling people along with you until some point where you reach a critical mass, and then the people start pulling you, right? I mean, that's sort of look at Docker as a great example. At some point, the community will sort of take over and start sort of pulling you in that direction. Until then, you have to stake your ground and sort of say, hey, this is what we want to do. This is our vision. This is where we believe we deliver value, and this is the path we're taking. Let us know if you agree or disagree, and then sort of right. But you have to stay true to your own vision, and otherwise you're ending up sort of like zigzagging, and that's right. That's okay,
that's right.
Right? You can pivot once or twice, but that's it.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Have you ever needed to pivot yet?
No. We're executing on the vision, right? And then we'll prove this out.
Good, very good. Now you have done a couple of startups before, and the heritage is kind of based similar to Ceph, right? So comparing with Ceph's history or Ceph's path, what is that you want to emulate, and what is that you want to do differently? I wouldn't say avoid, but do differently than how Ceph did.
I mean, I wasn't a part of the sort of the Ceph chapter, right? I came in and met the CEO of DreamHost about a year ago, as I just sold a company to VMware and was looking for my next startup. So my background in the sort of the Ceph world isn't that strong. But in many ways, we're following the same playbook as Ceph, right? Ceph had a very early on sort of a very strong community of HPC customers and academia. I don't know if that will be true with Akanda. I see more of sort of the traditional enterprises, but other than that, Ceph was OpenStack, open source, right? So in many ways, it has a lot of similarities. The sort of the business model is more or less the same, so on and so forth.
Cool, very good. Yeah, I expect that. Yeah, Ceph also did very good on the partner ecosystem, and they did very well on working well with multiple devices, if you want to call that. So probably something that Akanda would. You mentioned about being L2 agnostic, so I see some similarity there. So cool, very good.
You will see some interesting announcement in a couple of weeks.
That'll be great. That'll be great. You guys are very open stocks.
I'm losing you, Shreya.
Did you hear me, Henrik?
No, I did not hear a word of
Sorry.
that. Can you try again? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry for the technical issues today. Yeah. What do you expect from the OpenStack community? You've been involved in the community, but is there anything specific asked to the community?
Well, I mean, feedback, code reviews, any sort of type of interaction is greatly appreciated, right? We're just starting to see interest from the community. They're sort of circling the wagon, and you can see they're starting to look at the code on GitHub. And, it's hugely valuable, and it's really interesting to see people getting interested and engaged with us here in the early days.
Sweet, makes sense. Yeah. What are your thoughts about the OpenStack startup ecosystem? Right. I mean, I mentioned you before. My goals of my series is to highlight these startups in the OpenStack ecosystem.
Yeah.
As someone, what are your thoughts?
So I think in many ways, OpenStack is a great community to launch a startup, because it is big enough to matter, but it's small enough that you can get your name out there, right? That is very, very hard if you have a sort of much broader ecosystem you have to address, right? So that was specifically why we said, hey, we're 100% OpenStack, 100% open source.
Okay.
That limits our sort of addressable market for the time being, but it also is a good opportunity for us to go in there and get known.
Okay, so
it's as opposed to if you
right. So it's large enough to have a very diverse sample set, but it's also like small enough for you to like focus on.
Exactly, right? I mean, imagine you just go after, if you're an SDN startup, I won't mention any names, and you're sort of going after, all the big guys, right?
Yes.
You need deep pockets, and you need something that, really has differentiated value of an order of magnitude that people are going to, try you out, as opposed to just, staying with status quo. Right.
Okay.
And I think the OpenStack community as such are, technically very savvy and love new technology. And so I think that is a great sort of attribute of an ecosystem, right?
Okay. I lost you briefly after you said it's a great attribute. But
right, for an ecosystem, for a startup ecosystem, right? That's really, having people that are not afraid of getting their hands dirty with new technology is always
right.
a great attribute. Yeah.
Okay, great, very good. Hey, I want to go back to the challenges part of it, right? So you mentioned that your source code is in GitHub. What are your plans to move it upstream? Are you going to move it upstream to OpenStack code at all? Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in that process. Hello, are you there?
I'm sorry again.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, no worries. So I was just saying, yes, we are absolutely in the process of moving things upstream. You'll see that happening in over the next 6 months.
Okay, good, very good, very good. Hey, I'm really having this really bad day with the Google Hangout today. I covered all the questions that I wanted to talk. Is there anything specific that I can be of help, or is there any other message that you want to address to the audience, please?
Yeah, I think this was a good sort of introduction to him. As I said facetiously before, maybe we should do another one in a couple of weeks after Vancouver. Okay. But I will welcome that very much.
Okay, we'll do that one. And is there anything that you want to add? You want to add to the audience?
That's fine. I appreciate. Thanks for all the questions.
Thank you so much, Henrik. Have a great day. See you in Vancouver.
See you in Vancouver. Okay, take care. Bye.